Kurt Bardella, Democratic strategist and former spokesperson for the House Oversight Committee, and Juanita Tolliver, political strategist and MSNBC political analyst. And despite the Supreme Court saying, you guys are both allowed to be here. So welcome.
Thank you for having us.
They don't love it. They don't love it. I know Clarence Thomas really don't love it, but but we'll let you all stay. So let's talk about this. So President Biden, right off the top, of course, Nicole asked him about this decision and asked whether he thought that the court was abnormal. He did say he thought it was an abnormal court. What do you make of the fact that he then sort of pivoted to, I don't think that we should do anything to expand it necessarily? I mean, he did go institutionalist on that.
It's fully grating me, Joy. Like when I saw that response, because President Biden was choosing his words very carefully.
Yeah.
He was not going to go too far into this is an undemocratic court or anything like that.
Yeah.
But he named the explicit damage and target and harm that this court is doing, but doesn't want to take any action. And that is what rubbed me wrong, because as a black woman in this country, as an individual who is under direct attack from multiple precedent-breaking decisions over the past few years from this court, I don't have the patience. So I'm looking at Biden like, you need to use every tool available to you beyond a study, beyond a report, and actually consider your options here, because you can't say this court is taking the country in the wrong direction in one breath and then do nothing about it.
Yeah, I mean, we had this conversation with the great Rachel Maddow and Nicole afterwards, and Eddie Glaude afterwards, that there is this sort of disconnect between Biden's institutionalism. I mean, he is an OG politician. Yeah. He's been around doing this since he was 29. And he really does believe in the institutions. He's not faking that. He's like Barack Obama that way. And the kind of panic that people are feeling, women, LGBTQ folks, minorities of all kinds, immigrants, migrants. It's a panic moment, but he is steady Eddie no matter what.
Well, I think for him, that's what he perceives to be his strength. Like, that's his biggest selling point. The contrast is, do you want competency or do you want chaos from the Republicans? And especially after what we saw on January 6th, after what we saw even just during COVID and the hysteria that has since overrun the entire Republican Party, I think President Biden has made the calculation that this country, with all the unsettling that has happened and all the unsettling that is a product of these extreme decisions being made out by the Supreme Court, that steadying the ship, just righting the ship, before you can fix anything, you need to just make sure that everything is stable. That's the argument I think that he's leaning on as he heads towards the re-election. I do think that there is a danger here, though, that for the activist community, for the communities who are under fire and disenfranchised by the extremism of the Republican Party, whether you are a woman, a person of color, whether you're someone that's Asian American who's been called a virus for the last couple of years,
absolutely.
You want that urgency, that recognition that it's scary.
And seen violence against the Asian American community as a result of it. And I think that's the point, is that it is such a sort of pivotal moment, and it is Republicans who are doing it. He did talk about Republicans, too. Let's see what he said.
There's still a lot of really good Republicans.
Out in the country.
No, and in the Senate.
Who?
Well, I think Mitt Romney's the first guy. There's a lot of them, but not Mitt, but others have come to me since I've been elected. Now it's 6 Republican senators. 2 came at one time and the other 4 alone to tell me, Joe, I agree with you, but if I'm seen to do it, I'll lose a primary. It's not a profile in courage, but I still, you know me, I'm an eternal optimist. I still think there's going to come a moment when they're going to be able to break.
I'm going to start a segment called That's So Biden, because that's so Biden. That's Biden, right? I mean, he still wants to separate the MAGA from the Republicans and say there's still some good ones. They're not too courageous, but they're there.
And there's only 6, not a filibuster-proof amount.
And not Mitt Romney.
Exactly. Let me make it clear. It doesn't include Mitt.
Not Mitt.
I think it's frustrating because this constant statement of there's still good Republicans. Show me them.
Yeah.
Walk out with them in every city you're going to when you're talking about the economy. Walk out with them at the White House when you're putting out a new executive order. Show me them. Yeah. Because it's a fallacy in my mind. It doesn't exist. It's a figment of my imagination, because when all of this harm is being done and they're silent, only coming to Biden in private, I don't even want to hear that there are 6 of them. Yeah. Because the reality is they're still on board with causing the harm. They're still on board on not stopping any of the extremism that we're seeing from MAGA Republicans.
You know where you're going to find them? You're going to find them in all the groundbreakings for the infrastructure.
Or at least taking
the Biden bucks. Oh, yeah, they're like, Biden bucks, we'll take it, but we want to take credit for it. Where the Republicans are today is crowing and excited about affirmative action falling. And they feel very good about that, because it's interesting that, I mean, Trump's whole purpose was payback for white America, for Barack Obama existing and not being essentially a hand puppet as president, and being quiet and waving and saying, thank you, white people, for letting me be president, and trying to do things, right? And his retribution is this court. and they're getting it for them.
Well, you go back to the original slogan, Make America Great Again.
Yeah.
Going backwards, their portrait of what a great America is the time before women had rights, before there was any march for equality, before people of color could have a fighting chance to compete in higher education. And now their big accomplishment is that they've unrolled all of that progress that we've made in this country, that we are now, it's mind-blowing to me that a child born right now will have less rights than we did when we were born.
Yeah.
How is that possible that we've gotten to the point where we are seeing progress completely rolled back? And it goes back to the earlier conversation. Institutionalism isn't going to work. The institution wasn't designed for the wrecking ball that is the MAGA Republican Party being swung at it every single day. We need to do more.
The institution also wasn't designed for any of us.
Period. And I think that's what grated me most about what, Justice Clarence Thomas wrote, and the fact that, I want our country to make good on the values presented in the Constitution and the Declaration and all these documents that weren't written for him, me, or anybody else. And so when I read his words, it's just giving self-loathing and just self-hatred to a level that came through. And I think about also him trying to come at Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Jackson, who didn't mince words on him either. And I appreciate her calling out his obsession with this race consciousness because he hates himself for it.
He hates the fact that, and the thing that's so wild about Clarence Thomas is he never would have been considered by Yale. This is somebody who spoke Gullah. He spoke the Geechee language until he was 6 years old. He is somebody Yale would have never considered but for affirmative action, and he seems to loathe everything about the opportunities he's been given and want to delete them for every other black person forever.
It's so counterintuitive and insulting to everyone else who's now going to be denied those same opportunities.
He would have denied Ketanji Brown Jackson to be there because he would have said she couldn't be at Harvard.
I mean, you look at this table right here. This is the nightmare scenario for the Republican Party. Smart, independent, outspoken, diverse voices telling the truth about what's happening in their country. That's what the attack is on. That's what they're trying to silence and stop from happening.
And not only that, but in alliance.
Yes. Fully in agreement, fully understanding and hearing each other.
And voting. Kurt Bardella and Juanita Tolliver, thank you. And we'll bring you all back anytime. Believe me, the Supreme Court can't prevent it. We'll be right back. I know they hate it, but they can't prevent it.